Hey, this is the Master's Voice, the podcast series from Mediabrief.com. I'm your host and friend Pavan Chawla, founder, editor of Mediabrief.com, and this episode is very special indeed because I have a stellar professional who brings solid sales and marketing experience from some great brands he's worked with. Please join me in welcoming Anupam Gurani, Chief Marketing Officer at School EdTech Major Lead. Anupam, welcome to the Master's Voice on Mediabrief.com.
Thank you so much, Pavan. Thank you for having me over. It's indeed a pleasure to be here, and I'm really looking forward to our conversation today. I've heard so much about you and been a regular follower of Mediabrief, and all the posts that you guys keep putting up on LinkedIn keeps me in touch with what's happening in the industry. So really looking forward to our interaction today.
Thank you so much, Anupam. Thank you for the kind words. Thank you for your time at the end of a working day. And thanks also to Divyata, Ria and Vidhi from AdFactors PR for having made this interaction possible. Anupam, before we begin our chat, allow me to share your profile with our listeners. So, by your leave, Anupam Gurani is the Chief Marketing Officer, CMO at Lead. He has more than 18 years of experience working in various roles across marketing, digital marketing, P&L management, brand building, sales, key account management, and channel marketing. At Lead, Anupam oversees the company's overall marketing strategy and plays a significant role in accelerating business growth in existing as well as new markets. Before joining Lead, Anupam was Senior Vice President and Head Sales at Disney+Hotstar, where he built the digital ad sales business and played a key role in strategic business decisions for the company. Anupam has also worked with Vodafone India, where he led the sales and marketing team. And before that, Anupam spent more than a decade working in India and Southeast Asia with Reckitt Benckiser and Google. At Google, Anupam was responsible for driving adoption of digital platforms for top FMCG clients, whereas at Reckitt Benckiser for Dettol, Anupam was involved in various roles across the sales and marketing functions. Anupam is an alumnus of IIM Bangalore and Delhi College of Engineering. He grew up in Gurgaon and at present lives in Mumbai with his family. Anupam is a voracious reader and a fitness enthusiast and loves cooking. So that, my friend, is Anupam Gurani, Chief Marketing Officer of Lead, the School EdTech major that's now a unicorn. Anupam?
Thank you so much. Thank you for...
So Anupam, let me give our listeners context to our chat. As we know, Anupam as CMO is driving the entire marketing function and vertical at School EdTech Major Lead, which serves more than 3,000 budget private schools in 400 plus cities. Lead has been playing a major role in transforming school education in India and, more important, narrowing learning gaps for more than 1.2 million students. Lead is the first school edtech player to enter the Unicorn Club with a Series E funding of $100 million US, standing up, at a valuation of $1.1 billion. And to boost, and this is what brings us to why we are doing this episode now, and to boost admissions for budget private schools, Lead has launched a high-decibel multimedia campaign. So let's have a bit of a deep dive chat on the campaign with Anupam, and then we'll go on to slightly broader insights for marketing professionals on the insights and learnings a professional of his amazing experience and caliber brings to the table. So, Anupam, tell us about the campaign that you've just launched for Lead School.
Sure. A little bit of a background about what is it that we are trying to do as an organization, because the campaign is deeply connected with that. See, our vision is to build India's largest school network, and a network which is present across 60,000 schools and is able to impact the learning for more than 2.5 crore children over the next 5 years. That's our mission.
Okay.
Today we are present in close to 3,000 schools. We started, almost 5 to 6 years back with one school of our own, expanded to 5 schools, then 35, then 150, 500, and then 2,000 last year. And we'll probably most likely end with 5,000 schools by the end of this financial year.
That's amazing.
The thing that we want to do now is to try and build demand for these schools,
right? And
go to parents and tell them that you should send your child to a lead-powered school, right? Because a lead-powered school is much better than any other option of a normal school that you have in and around your vicinity. Now, this campaign's core job is to help parents discover and find a lead-powered school near them.
Okay.
And it talks to the parents about what is it that we do and how do we teach in our schools, and what kind of learning outcomes we are able to deliver to children versus, let's say, any other regular school. The core problem with the education in India has been that we are still stuck in our ways of teaching. The teacher quality in tier 2, tier 3, 4 towns is extremely low. When COVID happened, most of the teachers were not able to figure out as to how they can run classes online, for example, right? So that's a deep-rooted problem, that quality of teaching is poor. The infrastructure in these schools is extremely poor. There hasn't really been a lot of technology adoption in these schools. And then lastly is the overall support system that these students get back at home, because you're talking about tier 2, 3, 4 kind of towns where parents themselves are not deeply educated. So combined, these are the three problems that we are trying to solve for the child. And as we penetrate deeper into schools, we are trying to tell parents about these lead-powered schools and enable that discovery. The campaign's core objective is this.
You've actually set this entire preamble. In fact, the background is now very, very clear. You see, what you all are doing is, of course, any entity does work to sort of grow its own business, of course. But what you all are doing is, you're also growing the category of really well-enabled and empowered budget private schools. And this is in more than 400 plus cities. So really, this is going to be one of the best enablers for, about 3-4 years ago, Anupam, I was reading somewhere that India it's been considered and is regarded and sort of confirmed and concluded by a lot of experts all over the world that India is going to be the next innovation capital of the world. Why? Because it has the largest number of young people. And young people want to be their own bosses, want to start where their parents, everybody, the elders, finish their work, and they want to be entrepreneurs. And to be an entrepreneur with that bent of mind, you have to be innovative. So really, I think what lead schools are doing, and this approach of yours, lead empowered schools for private budget schools, it's really going to make a lot of difference. There might be some few schools which are right at the, creme de la creme category. But where India lives, where the future of India is growing and educating itself and learning truly has to be in the kind of schools that LEAD is leading today. So, great. So, Anupam, before we proceed, let me just play out the audio of both the campaign films that have been released. The first is Syllabification, then we'll play the second one, right? So, here goes.
ये वेंकी कहाँ है आजकल? बाप से मिलने का टाइम ही नहीं है।
आलू से इलेक्ट्रिसिटी बनाने में।
मुझे 5th क्लास में इलेक्ट्रिसिटी की स्पेलिंग भी नहीं आती थी। मेरे टाइम पे ये लीड वाला स्कूल होता ना, तो मैं।
हाँ, तुम तो इलेक्ट्रिसिटी से आलू बना देते।
लीड पावर्ड स्कूल देता है इंटरनेशनल स्टैंडर्ड एजुकेशन, जिसका फर्क देख रहे हैं 8 लाख से भी ज्यादा पेरेंट्स। leadschool.in पे रजिस्टर कीजिए और खुद फर्क देखिए।
I really like this, and a bit of a comment which I'll make. Let me first play the second film.
Comprehend. Comprehend.
तेरी बेटी लीड वाले स्कूल में पढ़ती है।
तेरा बेटा भी।
वैसे कमाल का तरीका है ना, सिलेबिफिकेशन। जो शब्द बोलने में मुश्किल लगे उसे ऐसे तोड़ो और फिर जोड़ दो। अंडरस्टैंड?
अंडरस्टूड।
लीड पावर्ड स्कूल देता है इंटरनेशनल स्टैंडर्ड एजुकेशन, जिसका फर्क देख रहे हैं 8 लाख से भी ज्यादा पेरेंट्स। leadschool.in पे रजिस्टर कीजिए और फर्क देखिए।
Right. So both the campaign films we've played, and my listeners now know what this is about. In any case, they would have seen them because you have a high-decibel campaign. But one thing I take away from the approach is that you seem to have adopted a very easy to get and easy to understand and a nicely simple tactical 2 + 2 = 4 kind of thought-provoking communication for the campaign, which I may add is always of good. No, I think it's a great thing to aim for in any marketing communication. What was the objective of this campaign in terms of, what is the key message you're giving now as a tactical and as a strategic, as a brand awareness plus customer acquisition route, for that? What are the messages that both these campaigns were giving that you wanted to portray and convey?
See, as a parent, and I'm myself a parent of 2 young school-going children. My daughter, she's 11 years old, and my son, he's just turned 6. They've both been grounded for the last 2 years, been studying at home online. I think what I look forward to as a parent in my children, right, more than marks, is what I see, daily signs of whether they are learning or not. Those come a lot of times in maybe a dinner table conversation when your child ends up correcting you, right? That, our first campaign that we did the theme was around whether marigold is a flower or it's a bouquet of flowers, right? So marigold is a bouquet of flowers. It's not a flower.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So now when you see your child telling you, hey, marigold is not a flower, all of a sudden you might feel embarrassed at times, but you also feel that your child is learning, right? It's these daily moments when you realize that your child is growing every day, and that's what we seek as parents from school, right? When we were growing up, I think the only metric of learning used to be how much do you score well in your board exams. But board exam happens once in a lifetime for a child after first 12 years, 13 years of education, right? How do you measure whether the child is learning? Is it basis simple, just that once in a year, twice in a year report card that you see? Or is it basis these signs? And I think that was the insight that we used, that parents, they do their best to send their children to get the best education, which even they did not receive.
Right.
As a parent, every parent wants to provide better to their child, right? However, the only thing that they seek and how they learn whether my child is really gaining from the kind of education I'm trying to provide is through these cues, which we call as visible learning outcomes. So we've tried to use in our communication these insights using different subjects. It's like the entire theme of campaign was cracked by our creative from TBWA.
The ideation and conceptualization of the campaign, Anupam, tell me how it happened along with TBWA and Nitish Tiwari. How do you ensure, Anupam, that every idea is actually expressed and put on the table by everyone, especially the junior most team members? That may not be sort of relevant to this discussion with TBWA and Nitish Tiwari, but generally, how do you ensure that I want to listen to every idea that is in every mind that is sitting around this table? Because, the kind of experience that you have in marketing and sales, you wouldn't want to leave any idea unspoken. So how do you encourage that?
Made a great point there, and I've been on that side where when I entered the industry first, in that first campaign I was the youngest, and I was seeing the stalwarts of my company at that time, the marketing director and the best of brains from the creative agency, and what I noticed as a culture, at least in Reckitt at that point of time, and most FMCG companies follow that, that they first ask the junior most person to react, and it obviously puts a little bit of pressure on the guy, because all of a sudden you feel you are being judged in that environment, in that room full of 15 people. But I think over a period of time you gain confidence because everyone is keen to hear you and not really judge you.
Right.
That's something that I personally grew up in professionally as a culture. My CEO, his name is Sumit Mehta, he's ex-P&G, and again he's been through a similar environment. So whenever we are in a meeting, I think the first person who talks or reacts on any campaign brief or any campaign idea presented by our agency is the junior most person in the team, and equal weightage is given to every single one of them. And so that just helps us to ensure that we're not brushing their feedback. We are taking that into account. Where we have found a disagreement with them, we might also vocalize that, and at the same time where we agree with their point, we're more than happy to acknowledge and really make sure that the feedback given by the universe person is incorporated.
Right. And this campaign, so the ideation and conceptualization, whose was it?
So our creative team from TBWA, it's led by Parikshit, a gentleman named Parikshit, who's the creative director there. I think the biggest idea that they brought on the table was to say that, hey, let's not position Lead as a B2B brand, right? Let's position it as a parent-facing brand. And let's also say that parents who choose Lead School, they are progressive, right? So if you see our TVC, we are not saying you buy my product. We are saying smart folks buy my product, and therefore putting the ball in parents' court. Are you smart? Are you taking the right decision for your parent by choosing Lead?
Correct.
Right? So rather than saying, hey, take my product, you've sort of put the ball back in parents' court and said that smart parents choose Lead for their children.
And there is no hard sell here, no?
Yeah.
Anupam, the hard sell is not on, hey, you have to buy this because it's the best.
Yeah.
But you just showcase the effect and the great positivity that it sort of leaves in the child's mind, and how it empowers the kids. And then there's one parent who's smart, the mother, and then the father says, yeah, actually you're right.
And I think one thing you will notice in the campaign is that unlike a lot of campaigns which are centered around education, you always end up focusing only on the child. However, most of the time these decisions for children who are going to school are made by parents.
Right.
While the child is at the heart of the story because he's the one who's learning, but the entire discussion is being portrayed from a parent point of view. The child is present without really being present in the story. I think that's one thing which helps us to differentiate our campaign in the crowd of all the campaigns around EdTech.
What kind of media have you been using to play out this campaign and take it to all your TGs? What is the media mix like? What are the platforms you're using?
See, our core business that we have is almost 80 to 85% comes from tier 2, 3, 4 towns.
Okay.
Because that's where the schools who we cater to are present, right? That's where Bharat studies, right? It's not metros. Therefore, if I want to go to that audience, then I have to use television media, because while digital penetration in India has increased and we are using that as a channel, but TV still delivers a far higher reach, because we are really talking about tier 3, 4 class town where maybe the smartphone penetration is still not as high, internet is still probably not the best. Right? Not to say that those channels are not being used, but predominantly TV.
Absolutely.
TV across the country, and then aided significantly by digital as well as on-ground presence.
And in any case, Anupam, India has 309 or 12 million TV homes, which is huge. And you multiply that into a 4x4, 4.4, you get the actual numbers. And only about 7 to 10% of people actually use digital. But you're right. I mean, as you said, you use both, but the mix has to be representative of the spread. So yeah, great. So television, yes, as the first, and this therefore makes it a more expensive campaign because TV is obviously far more expensive than digital. But what has been the result of this campaign? How long has it been running now? Is it very early days to actually look at the impact?
So what we had done earlier was we carried it out as a test market in one region last year. Through our campaign, our core objective is to drive admissions in our partner schools. Now, admissions is a seasonal category, right?
Right.
And school admissions does not happen throughout the year. Majority part of it happens in January to April months across the country. So we had done a similar campaign last year for Tamil Nadu, wherein we saw that the rate of growth that we saw in our schools and admissions in Tamil Nadu as a market was almost 2 to 3 times higher than all the other markets.
Right.
We are a growing organization. We are ourselves growing close to 3x kind of a rate. Within that, one market grew almost 2 times faster than all the other markets. Right. So those were the historical results for us. For this season, we have launched the campaign today. We delayed it a little because it was something we earlier planned to launch sometime towards the end of December. But then as COVID spiked, we held on to the campaign for 1 or 2 weeks. And now we've just launched, knowing that the country has not come to a standstill again like the second wave. It seems to be something that should hopefully not have so much impact on schools, and we are really hoping that schools reopen.
Absolutely. Even the children are quite, sick of the boredom of working from home, and turn around and suddenly you're at home and look at the screen and you're in school. Just completely takes away the fun and effervescence of going to school and doing masti in the corridors.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So give me the idiot's guide to how LEAD empowers schools that it takes under its umbrella, under its fold.
Sure. I'll try to answer it in a very simple way. What we provide to schools, any school that we partner with, we define it as 5 signs of visible learning.
Right.
Number 1, we provide international standard curriculum to all the partner schools. So they shift from their existing curriculum that they would have followed normally to our books, which are providing a much better quality content and also a way of teaching. Number 2, we convert all regular classes into smart classes for that school. So if a teacher was teaching on using Blackboard, and it was more like a lecture-based teaching. All of a sudden, all classes are equipped with smart TVs. The teachers, they have their own teacher tabs and lesson plans, and the entire experience moved to a more audio, visual, and activity-based learning.
Far more engaging.
Absolutely. Number 3, we work very closely with all the teachers in these schools to convert them into what we call super teachers.
Wow.
Now, how do we do that? There are 3 aspects in which we help our teachers. Number 1, we provide them with ready lesson plans for the next 200 days. When a teacher is teaching, she will have a lesson plan for each day. On day 1, what will I teach? It's all ready made. Every teacher gets a teacher tablet from us.
Oh.
So all they have to do is they need to go see what is it that they're supposed to teach the next day, go through that, and then deliver that education in the classroom. The assessments are also pre-designed by us. Teachers can select from those. We have recently introduced something called interactive homework, where we are planning to introduce capabilities such as auto-checking of homework for teachers, thereby helping them to save a lot of time. And lastly, we work with the teachers to train them and upskill them on both qualitative aspects of teaching as well as making sure that they are able to handle children, their socio-mental balance, being able to guide them during circumstances such as the pandemic.
Brilliant. So actually, as I see LEAD, it is a great confluence of fabulous EdTech plus your own excellent pedagogy, and both of them bringing in greater engagement and therefore more enjoyment and learning for the students, and also leaving teachers a lot of time to actually do the real meat and potatoes of what they were supposed to be doing, instead of just worried about checking and so many other things to be done. Really very, very nice.
Absolutely. So I mentioned 3 things. I think international standard curriculum, smart classes, super teachers. There are 2 more things. Number 4 is we provide at-home learning.
Okay.
Once the child goes back from school at home, we continue to help them with their education at home through Lead Student app. That's where our online apps come into picture.
Okay.
And lastly, we help provide immense amount of exposure to these set of children who are in those tier 3-4 towns where they possibly don't get enough opportunities to showcase their talent. Right? So whether it's by virtue of organizing the largest student championship across, let's say, 3,000 partner schools, where children from different schools can come, participate in a contest, compete with other students across the country, gain confidence, represent their schools themselves, and win laurels for themselves, or be taking the best of celebrities like Chetan Bhagat to these children to talk to them about creative writing as a skill, or Sunil Gavaskar to talk to them about public speaking.
Wow.
Or Saina Nehwal or Abhinav Bindra to talk to them about leadership skills, right? So these are the kind of workshops that we have run for our children, which provide immense exposure, which otherwise they would have never had access to.
Right.
So these are the 5 ways in which we work with the schools, and those are a core part of our value proposition.
Yes, this is really great value at a very elemental level in terms of getting the kids involved, engaged, and inspired, So you've got the best people, the best inspirational stars and leaders from across various spaces which have anyways seized the public imagination, because these are all stars, whether somebody is from, fiction, somebody's from cricket or wherever. Really, really very, very good. So how are you planning to take the campaign forward? This is the last question on the campaign, and then I'll come on to some learnings from you for industry professionals.
See, our campaign is already gone live.
Yes.
We are live across all major channels across the country.
Okay.
I think the call to action for all parents who are watching this campaign is to come and find a lead school near them by visiting our website, leadschool.co.in, where we've also built, and we are in the mission of building the largest school directory for India for all lead partner schools, so which becomes the de facto source of information for any parent who wants to put their child in a lead part school.
Lovely.
Right? Any kind of information about the school. Now, we are going to be on for the next 12 weeks on media across markets. We are hoping that eventually this year, in April, all schools will open up, and we will be able to also play a key role in getting children back into schools as a result of these campaigns, especially for the budget private schools. who really suffered a lot during this time because of the lockdown.
So, Anupam, let's move on a little bit to the industry and marketing. And congratulations on leading marketing for a brand like Lead, which is now a unicorn. What has your experience been like, leading the function that is crucial to partner in student acquisition and business growth?
I think I'll step back and probably talk briefly about what was I thinking about when I was at Hotstar and when the opportunity to work at Lead came by. The core reasons for me to come here were as follows. Number one, I think you mentioned it right that Disney and Hotstar is such a large organization. Hotstar, in true sense, was my first startup experience. Okay. I think I've got the courage, I got the courage to join a startup only after having worked at Hotstar. Hotstar, in some sense, was a little protected because it was internally funded by Disney, and therefore we did not have to look at an external investor every time we wanted to implement a plan and try and grow. I think over a period of time, what I felt was, even though Hotstar was important, in the context of Disney Hotstar, it would feel very small, right? Overall, in the context of how large Disney is as an organization. So one wanted to make an impact in terms of the kind of work that you do and really drive overall value for the organization, number one. Number two, I wanted to work in an industry where you are also able to solve big problems that are being faced by our country. I think education is one of them. I've also become a little more open to it ever since my children have started to go to schools. We have, in fact, moved across 5 to 6 cities in the last couple of years, and every time we move from one city to another, that's a bit of challenge that we face in terms of which school do we want to send our children to, and how do we choose that. A lot of times you don't get the right kind of school that you would want to send your child. Thankfully, I've been in large cities where you still have a choice of schools. The deeper you go into India, the choice of schools starts to go down. Right. So that was the second desire, to try and work. Though I was not clear whether education is the sector, but I did want to try and work in a place where I'm able to solve for some large problems faced by the country. And number three, I was clear that I wanted to be in a place where the economy is related largely to a digital ecosystem. Right. That was the third desire. With a founder, number one, try and solve for a problem that is being faced by millions in the country, number two, and also use technology as a way of disruption as far as the industry is concerned.
If you were to define Lead as a brand, the elevator pitch, tell us.
Lead is the largest school network in the country, right? It is the Intel inside the school.
Wow.
See, we are not opening our own chain of schools, but we are powering schools, right? We're not a franchisee. We help schools deliver their core job, which is of delivering great learning for students. And in the process, if they do it, our fundamental belief is that the school will be successful.
Excellent.
If you were to think of India 25, 30 years from now, what will propel India to be the greatest country in terms of growth, in terms of the kind of people that we have? It's human resources, right?
Absolutely.
And the more we are able to invest in our children now, no country in the world has 25 crore children studying in schools.
Yes, absolutely. You're in a place where you can make the greatest positive impact, and I think you're doing it too, and so very well. So, Anupam, let's move on to something else. What were your learnings, particularly during the lockdown? One. And what advice would you like to give to young professionals to help them remain ahead of the curve of current and foreseeable? I know the pandemic has turned foreseeable into such a joke, but well, what advice? So, learnings and advice.
I think I changed my job in the middle of the pandemic. Right? So, the first wave had hit us in the month of March is when the first lockdown happened, and I joined Lead in August. And when I joined Lead, I was the first member in marketing team at that time. So over the period of last almost year and a half, I've really put together every member in the team. So there are close to around 35-40 people now in our team. So I think, and every member that I've had, most people have not come from education industry. All of them are from very diverse set of industries. A lot of them are not even parents. Okay. Right? So the last experience that they had with school was probably 20-25 years back when they were students, right? So that brings me to the experience part of it, that it's been very interesting to get to know our industry, because I come from a point of view of being a parent. However, we are still far disconnected from the kind of schools that we are trying to sell our products to. What the pandemic did was it prevented us from going, visiting, meeting that consumer, that school owner, that parent, that child. And, for the first initial few months, we said that, okay, as and when the schools open up, we will do that interaction, and it kept getting pushed off to an extent that we said that, hey, it's not helping us because we don't have a great understanding of our user. We are trying to build communication, solve for things, define our value proposition. And I had no intention of becoming our armchair marketer. The biggest thing that potentially or has happened in the last year and a half is that people have been confined to their homes from home, and their ability to actually meet consumer in their normal environment in which the consumer is consuming their product or media or whatever has really gotten impacted.
Right.
So my advice to everyone would be that you can continue to work from home, but please don't let this bring a huge amount of distance between you and your consumer. Be close to them, meet them often. Think of education in schools, which was completely offline in the past 2 years, has become completely online, right? So that's the extent to which behaviors are changing.
Right.
And therefore, if you don't go and meet your users, you'll end up making wrong assumptions about what they like, what they don't like, about their behaviors.
Excellent. So keep in touch. Right. Now, last question, Anupam. And in brief, Anupam, you bring in vast experience and extensive knowledge, to bear on your diverse roles. And I know you believe, and I quote, that a marketing professional must constantly innovate instead of merely depending on external developments. So can you share anything, one particular thing or anything else that illustrates this excellent thought from all your vast experience? This whole thing about constantly innovating to stay ahead.
When you say a marketing professional needs to innovate, I would maybe broaden the horizon a little bit and say that every professional needs to constantly keep innovating in their professional lives, right? And take a look at you, Pavan. You've done such phenomenal or built some phenomenal properties in your past, right? And now you're trying to build a very different organization. You've gotten into podcasts. You're trying to build a channel of your own versus, a one-size-fit-all content to which one would make for television. Now you are producing personalized content by interacting with different people. And then you've been able to find a network to distribute it via social media, where people who like that kind of content are coming attracted. So you've innovated significantly. So likewise, it's relevant for every single professional. I started my career working in marketing in a FMCG industry. Work on Harpic, Dettol soap, these kind of brands. From there, I had this desire that, I don't understand digital. Therefore, I ended up joining the largest digital company in the world, Google. And that was my desire that,
Yes.
And therefore, what best way to learn about digital than to join Google.
Right.
Came back to India. I was completely impressed with the way Netflix, when they launched across 100 countries and enabled content for us.
Oh, yes.
It used to be only in US. We used to access Netflix via VPN. Those days are gone. And when the opportunity to work in Hotstar came, I jumped at it, right? Because it was again a very different role working in OTT. We've all grown up in television-led ecosystem. And likewise, when I ended up joining Lead, it was again a very different industry of education. Never worked in the industry. Forced to think about challenges, of making a product for budget private schools in India for a very different people versus what we are used to, making for the kind of consumers that we see in metro markets.
Absolutely.
I think at every instance, I've had to sort of take a call to push yourself to learn new things and innovate. And I think that's true for everyone. If you stop doing that, then life will become very boring.
Right. Anupam, one learning I take away from our conversation and the entire experience of Lead is that the promoters and the CEO, they decided that we should bring in the best professionals. They got you in as the first person in marketing, but professionals who will bring in a worldview, not thinking in the same, I won't use the word hackneyed here because I'm not saying that anybody who comes from the same sector is going to think in a predictable way. I don't need to use that word, but I'm just saying that, like you said, there are people from so many diverse areas and, fields of experience who've come and joined you that truly I think a worldview really makes all the plans succeed really well. And you are a shining example of the kind of leadership that achieves something like this. Really wonderful. Lead is a unicorn today. And congratulations to you. When Lead started, it started with one school, then 5, then 100, then, now you're aiming at 5,000 schools in the very, very foreseeable future. So more strength to you, Anupam. Thank you so much for your time and this lovely chat that I'm sure will help young marketers and your peers alike. And thanks also to Divyata, Ria, and Vidhi from Ad Factors PR for having made this conversation possible. Anupam, I enjoyed our chat and found it really insightful. What do you think of our conversation?
Well, my view on this is that the platform that you've built and the ability that it has to help people like professionals like me to be able to connect to younger professionals, and for me also to be able to learn from similar professionals working in diverse industries and take learnings out of what is happening, what are people doing right now to solve different challenges that they are facing from a marketing perspective. It's amazing. Thank you so much for building this wonderful platform. I am a keen follower of Mediabrief, and I'm hopeful that probably get again opportunities in the future to come and talk to you.
And I will look forward to that, Anupam. Thank you for your kind words. Thank you very much indeed for your time.
Thank you, Pavan. Thank you so much.
Anupam Gurani, Chief Marketing Officer at the School EdTech major, the Unicorn Lead, was my distinguished guest in this episode of The Master's Voice on Mediabrief.com. Till we meet again in the next episode of The Master's Voice on Mediabrief.com, this is your host and friend Pavan Chawla saying thank you for tuning in. Take care. Stay safe. Bye-bye.
Sitting squarely in the groove.